Don Mazzella here again for Small Business Digest. For years we've been talking about how people should write a book to enhance their marketing ability and and how people perceive them. Well, finally, I found somebody, Hank Quense, to talk about how you go about deciding on the topic, writing it, and most importantly, promoting it. Hank, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Don. Pleasure to be here.
As we ask all our guests, first tell us a little bit about your background. I know you've written nonfiction and fiction books, but tell us a little bit.
Well, I was, oddly enough, when I was 50 years old, I was a sales manager in Manhattan for a large corporation. I decided that my next career, I was going to be a fiction writer. And I figured it was only a matter of time till, they tapped me on the shoulder and told me to take a hike when you want your office for some younger kid. So I decided I was going to be a writer. I was commuting to New York every morning. So I started writing stories on the bus. And after several years of that, the corporation gave me a very big early retirement package. So I took the money and ran. And I've been writing ever since. And that's more than 20 years now. And for probably the first 10 to 12 years, I wrote fiction, short stories, then novellas, then novels. And then I kind of got lost my enthusiasm for writing fiction, so I switched to nonfiction. I started writing about what I knew, which was fiction writing, and I had self-published all my novels, so I knew a lot about that, and I knew a lot about book marketing, so that's what I started writing books on. And since then, I've still write books, but I write a lot of articles. I've written a lot of articles on all of those three subjects, and that pretty much brings you up to date. The quick version.
Do you have a website, Hank?
Yeah, it's Writer's Arc. Or wait a minute, you know what? Writer's Arc it is .org. Writers, it's Writers Writers and Authors Resource Center. WritersArc.org. Or you can always just Google me on, go to Amazon and look me up and type my name in there. You'll find a lot of stuff on me there.
Well, Hank, a lot of them, a large part of our audience are people who lead companies, 50 employees or less, and consultants, etc. And they've come to us in the past and said, well, how do we decide what to write about? Let's start there. What do you tell people?
What are they going to write about? I guess, well, if this is the corporation or a company, write about what you do, write about the company, how you go about doing stuff. If you're a consultant, how do you tell people that what's your pitch? I guess if you're going to write a book, really what you got to do is sit down and figure out what the table of contents is. What's in each chapter? How many chapters are going to be? How many what's going to be in each chapter? Chapter 5, for instance, maybe you got to come up with whatever the topic is. You got to come up with about 5 different topics to put in chapter 5. That's the way I go about it. I start to write a book. I work on the organization of it, what I'm going to write about, and how I'm going to write about it, and how the book is going to be organized. So, in your small business companies, you got to write about the business. You're trying to convince people to do business with you. You got to tell them what your business is and why you're good at it. That is primarily the purpose of a book for a company like that, is to convince people to do business with you. In my view, anyway. But I'm in a small business. I'm a small business myself. I'm a writer. I got to convince people to buy my stuff or to read my stuff.
Well, a lot of people say, well, I don't know how to write. What do you say to someone who says, I don't know how to write?
Well, that's tough. That's tough to overcome. Just start writing. If you write a lot, you will get better at it. And you can also take writing courses. There's a lot of stuff on the web. I go to the internet. So I don't know how to write. You'll probably get overwhelmed with stuff. Also offers from people to teach you how to write for a small fee. But if you want to get around it, you can get around it. You just decide you're gonna write and look for help.
What do you think of some of these programs like Grammarly?
Well, I don't use Grammarly, but it's what I understand. It's mostly just to um, straighten out your grammar, to fix it, if you make it better, make your writing better. But it won't write for you. It won't do the writing. It'll just make it better once you do write something and run it through Grammarly. That's what I understand. Like I said, I don't use Grammarly. The only writing program I use is Scrivener.
Well, people are worried about what is this, the chatbots, et cetera, that write everything for you. So
Yeah.
it scares me to death.
I'm not scared of it. I'm not it's especially for story, right? I just recently saw an article that this big sci-fi magazine, Clock's World, gets 20 to 30 submissions a month. They had to shut down because in 1 month they got over 300 submissions, all of them artificial intelligence. But the point is, if you're going to write fiction, it's not that is not a threat, because the robots will never get human emotions into the story. They will never be able to write an emotional arc for a story. That's human stuff. Machines can't do that. So that's my take on it anyway. Of course, that may change in a week or so, the way things are going. But right now, I'm not afraid of it.
Well, Hank, let's move ahead. You write a book. It's 124 pages of your expertise,
Okay.
and you decide you're going to self-publish it. We won't even go after a publisher.
Okay.
Yeah. What are some of the things you should first do before you even get it out to the public?
Get it edited. Mandatory requirement is it has to be edited by a professional editor. That's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing is, if you're going to self-publish, you have to understand that self-publishing is that the author is the publisher, and the author has to do everything that a publisher would do if you sold it to a publisher. They got to get a cover, you have to have it edited, you have to format it, you have to do all of that stuff, and you do that before you even get to try to upload it to Kindle. You have to do all the work a publisher would do. That's a lot of work. It's going to take months to do it all.
How do you find an editor?
How do I find? I'm sorry, what?
How do you find an editor?
Go to the web and say, I need an editor. You get all sorts of names. The problem with going to the internet is that there's so many scammers on there. You'll find names of editors, but you got to be very careful what you do. You got to check them out and make sure that just don't grab the first guy that's got the cheap price. Because one of the scams that editors run is that they give you a cheap price to get the business, and then halfway through the process they'll say, this is much worse than I thought. I can't do this for the money I promised you. You're going to have to come up with twice as much money, and you're stuck because they're already invested in this guy. So you either give them more money or you just write it off. But that is a very common scam with editors.
People ask me, what do you think is the ideal length of a book?
There is no ideal length. It depends upon what the topic is. If it's complicated topic, it could be 300-400 pages. If it's, if you're talking about a massive book on every possible plumbing repair, you're going to be a couple hundred pages. If you're writing something a smaller topic, it could be 100 pages. It depends upon the topic. There really is no preferred length.
Well, I know that, but I just trying to get and many of the questions that people ask us in our focus groups.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on now. You've got it edited, you got it typeset, you got the cover. Now comes the tough part. How do you get people to discover you?
That is the tough part. Um, the first thing you got to understand, I think, is well, everyone's going to start to use social media, but a lot of people I talk to, they think that social media sells books. It doesn't. All that social media does is provide links to your landing page, which is, let's say, on Amazon. The landing page is where you make the sale. The landing page has got to be really creative. It's got to have a lot of punch to it. You know, a dull landing page won't produce any sales. So the first thing you got to do is come up with a good landing page, and then you start to go out to tell people about it. There's a lot of promotions you can hire. Probably the best way is to hire a promotion company. That'll cost probably about $1,000, but that is the best and probably the fastest way to get the word out to various people. You can use social media, you know, the Facebook ads and all that stuff. I've tried all those. I don't believe in them. I think the best way is to hire a promotion company.
Yeah. And also somebody to get your whiz bang landing page.
That you need help with, you know. That's you probably got to. If it's your first time out, your first impulse will be to put a synopsis on the landing page, and every synopsis ever written is boring to read. So if a visitor comes up to a landing page and sees the synopsis, they're out of there before they read, you know, first paragraph. Got to be creative, and it can't be a synopsis. You have to get the people interested in a book. If it's nonfiction, presumably your book solved the problem. So you got to convince the people on your landing page that you know how to solve that problem, and your book will solve the problem. And that's what's got to go on the landing page.
Now that's a great thought.
You know, yeah, because you know, if you wrote a book on solving some problem like plumbing supplies, the people who are going to look for you and find you are people who are looking that got a plumbing problem. But they're going to look for your book. They're going to look at it, and they're probably going to look at a lot of other plumbing books and say, "Why is your book the best for making plumbing supplies, making plumbing repairs?" You've got to convince them. First, you know what you're talking about. Second, you're experienced. Third, your book will solve the problem, and that's why you should pay me the money to buy the book. Sounds simple, doesn't it?
Well, let's talk a little bit about pricing. How do you decide the price of a book?
Two things. For fiction, if you're self-publishing a book, what a lot of self-published authors make a mistake on is they'll look through Amazon and they'll see this guy like Bernard Cornwell, a big seller. Whoa, his ebooks are $12.99. I'm going to make it $12.99. Well, you're not going to sell any books because nobody ever heard of you. If you want to start selling books, you got to be down at $2.99 and $3.99. You can't sell at the bestseller what the bestsellers demand. Second thing is with nonfiction, you got to do some research and go through. Use the example of the plumbing repairs again. Go through books on plumbing repairs and see what their prices are, and put your book into that price range, depending on, you know, someplace within competitive prices of the other plumbing repair books, rather than just come up with a price out of the air. Do some research, find out what other authors are charging.
Your website again for people who want to learn more?
I think it's warc.org. Or I can't remember that, writersarc.org.
You're a nonprofit then.
Yeah, not by design. No, I'm not a legitimate nonprofit. It just happened to be accidental. If they want to look, really, just go to Google and put my name in there, Hank Quense. You'll find all sorts of stuff to get in contact with me.
Have you ever tried to sell a book to 3,000 copies to corporation or something like that?
No, because I don't think I write anything that is of interest to a corporation. Um, self-publishing, most corporations don't want to do that. Book marketing, corporations are used to stuff, on what the uh, how to make my corporation more creative,
Hmm.
stuff like that, which I don't write. So no, I've never tried to hit the corporate markets. I don't think it would work.
Uh, how do you come? See, so you haven't written fiction lately?
No,
No. Wh-
I
What?
just
What?
think I love to change. I love to learn new things. I love to start new things, new projects. I think I just outgrew fiction.
Hmm.
The last book I read, the last book I wrote, fiction, a novel. I could sense that I was losing my enthusiasm for this stuff.
Well, do you have a regular writing regimen? Do you write in the morning?
I write every morning, all morning. Usually start around 6 or 6:30 and go to 10 or 10:30 every morning. Christmas, New Year's, my birthday, even on vacation, I write.
Hmm.
I take my laptop with me. And maybe not as much time as normal, but I will do some writing even on vacation. The habit you get into.
Hmm. Well, I guess the next question, um, someone said recently that that in terms of nonfiction, a majority of authors are men now, but that it's becoming women. Do you see any differences in the genre between men and women writing? That
I've never really noticed it. I couldn't answer that. I never really looked at it.
mm, mm. I guess my next question has to do, what do you see the future of book publishing?
Excuse me. I don't know. I think self-publishing isn't going to go away, and the big publishers aren't going to go away. But I think the impact will probably be on this AI stuff. They're I'm not sure how it would go about because what you do now is AI. You just copy stuff that's already on the internet and just regurgitates it. So there's probably plagiarism issues that are going to be coming up. But put that aside, I think it'll continue to go the way it is. Massive ebook sales, massive ebook publications. They lost the sound, Don. I can't hear
Hmm. Yeah, I shut it off. Sorry.
you.
Um, the number of big publishers is declining now. What is it, four? But is there room for new publishers in the industry? Do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the big ones, but there's a lot of small indie press companies that are an alternative to self-publishing. They're much easier to get a contract with than the big guys. Many of them, most of them don't require an agent. And, they may only publish 10 or 12 books a year, but they're easier to get a contract with and much easier to work with than the big guys.
You know, but how do they make? I've often seen that, but you wonder how they make money.
The small guys,
Yeah.
it's tough um, because these small guys, they depend upon, they don't do any marketing. They depend upon the author doing the marketing and they make their revenue from book sales. So if the author isn't any good at marketing or doesn't do any marketing, the guy is not going to make any money on book sales because there won't be any book sales.
Mhm.
That's part of the big problem with these indie presses. Just because someone is smart enough to write a book doesn't mean he's smart enough to know how to market that book. That's a completely different skill set.
Well, what do you think are the three key things to marketing a book?
Three key things. Well, price. Um, relevance. You gotta be relevant. The key thing for marketing is you gotta find your genre. Marketing to the general population is a waste of money because 99.99% of the people don't care about your genre. You gotta, if you write romance, for instance, you have to find where the romance readers hang out and market to that small segment of the population. That's very difficult to do because many of the promotion, like Facebook ads, you can't get down to that fine granularity. They're sending all of this stuff out to the general population. So you're wasting your money. You have to find romance writers, or you got to find the sci-fi readers. Where are they? And hit those sites. You can find websites that are dedicated to romance readers and sci-fi readers. You got to find them. That's where your market is.
What I was surprised about the last 3 Sundays, the New York Times book section only had one ad from a independent, from someone not inside the New York Times orbit in the book. And that used to be such a thick volume of ads. Now it's just nothing.
Yeah. Well, an ad is very expensive. And you only do it once, a quarter-page ad cost a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're self-published and you're unknown, putting an ad once in the Times is not going to do any good. You gotta do it like 4 or 5 times. People got to get used to seeing your name.
Mm-hmm.
That is very, very expensive to do with the Times.
Absolutely.
But once isn't very good. Then people don't know your name; they won't remember it.
No. Hank, we only have a couple of minutes left. What would you like to leave the audience with?
What do I want to leave the audience with? If you're going to be a writer, write. Okay, you're going to write fiction. Know the ending of the story before you start to write the first draft. You have to know the ending. Nonfiction? I don't know. This question caught me by surprise, Don. I don't really have anything to. Don't give up. Don't give up. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. But don't give up and keep struggling. It's hard, but it's worth it.
Couldn't agree with you more, Hank. Well, your website one more time for our audience.
Can you hold on for just a minute? Let me look just to make sure I get it right. It's Writer's Arc, writersarc.com. You got that, Don?
Okay, got it.
writersarc.com.
I like the title. How'd you come up with it?
It was hard. I went through about 6 or 7 different iterations of this before I come up with that one. Actually, I come up with it quite a while ago. I just restarted it. It was buried someplace, and I found it and resurrected it. It's Writers and Authors Resource Center. Got a lot of stuff on it, including links to other stuff.
Well, on that note, Hank would say, Hank Quense, thank you so much. I enjoyed the time together.
I did too. This is always fun talking to people. It's thank you for having me, Don. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
Okay.